People say you get used to night shifts, used to the silence, the fluorescent lighting, the version of the world that only exists after midnight. Maybe some do. I never did. My name is Noah Mercer, 26 years old back in 2018, and a paramedic working nights at St. Meridian County Hospital in a quiet, fog-covered part of Vermont. A place people rarely noticed unless they needed stitches or CPR. I switched to nights after a breakup that wasn't just bad. It rewired something in me. My ex had gone from affectionate to paranoid in months, eventually locking me in a room during a fight because she believed I was cheating. I wasn't, but reason didn't matter to her. After that, silence felt threatening, doors felt temporary, and sleep came with tension instead of rest. Nights at the hospital were a distraction. Constant motion, emergency sirens, adrenaline. No time to think. My first week there, I met Celeste Ward, the new night receptionist. She was calm, observant, and disarmingly good at reading people. "Let me guess," she said during my second shift. "You're not here for the money. You're hiding from something." I didn't know how to respond, so I just said, "I like the quiet." She smirked. "Nobody works nights because they like quiet, Noah." Something about her felt familiar, not in a comforting way, but in a way that made me feel seen, maybe too seen. Still, she was easy to talk to. We bonded over long nights, burned coffee, chaotic emergency calls. She told me she had been ignored most of her life, by parents, friends, partners. She said she understood loneliness like a language. For a while, talking with her felt like relief. And when she asked if we could get coffee after a shift a few weeks later, I said yes. It felt harmless. It never is at the beginning. Dating Celeste wasn't defined by big dramatic moments. Not at first. Things changed in inches, not miles. She started with concerned texts. "Just message me when you get to a call so I don't worry." Then, "Can you call me on break? I miss hearing your voice." It sounded sweet, affectionate. After years of feeling like background noise, being someone's priority felt good. But the requests grew. She asked for my live location, saying it made her feel grounded. She questioned every female co-worker I spoke to. She showed up on nights she wasn't scheduled, lingering with coffee she claimed was just because. One night around 3 a.m., I was joking with one of the nurses, nothing intimate. Just the exhausted humor ER workers rely on. When I turned, Celeste was there, watching silently. Later, she said flatly, "You laugh differently with her." I brushed it off as insecurity. Everyone carried scars. But soon she was crying if I didn't respond immediately. She accused me of pulling away if I didn't text first. When I tried to slow things down, she whispered, "Everyone leaves me. Don't be like them." Part of me pitied her. Part of me felt trapped. But the more I tried to gently create space, the tighter she clung. One night she said, "If you ghost me, I swear I'll make people see who you really are." I didn't fully register it as a threat. I should have. The night everything shifted was cold, raining hard enough to blur the parking lot lights into smears. I'd just finished a double shift, 14 hours of trauma, exhaustion, and sickly hospital air. All I wanted was sleep. As I walked toward my car, Celeste stepped out from behind an ambulance bay, hair soaked, arms crossed, eyes sharp. "Noah," she said, voice trembling. "Why didn't you text me back?" "I was working," I answered carefully. "You weren't too busy to talk to her." "There is no her, Celeste. She's a coworker." Her expression changed. Like something unhinged beneath the surface finally cracked through. "Give me your phone." "No." She reached for it. When I stepped back, she slapped me, hard. My body froze. Not from pain, but from recognition. I'd been here before. Without another word, I got into my car and locked the doors. She pounded on the window, shouting, crying, begging, accusing. I drove away. heart racing. The next morning, I blocked her everywhere Friends told me I did the right thing. I wanted to believe them. 2 days later, around 2 a.m., a man walked into the hospital asking for me. Tall, tattooed, furious. "Where's Noah Mercer?" he demanded. I stepped into view slowly. "I'm Noah." He got close. Too close. "You think you can treat her like garbage?" "Who?" "Celeste." My stomach dropped. He shoved his phone at me. Photos of me with coworkers cropped to look romantic. Texts I never sent. Screenshots that made me look like a manipulative creep. Celeste had told him I stalked her, harassed her, and wouldn't leave her alone. "I'm giving you one chance to apologize to her face," he growled. I stepped back, radioing for security. "You're scared now?" he barked. "You should be." Security escorted him out, but that didn't stop him. When I clocked out at 4:11 a.m., he was waiting near my car. "You're done," he snarled before smashing my windshield with a tire iron. The sound echoed like a gunshot. Police arrived fast and arrested him. During questioning, Ronan insisted he was defending Celeste, that she told him I manipulated and threatened her. I provided evidence, messages, timelines, statements. The officers believed me. Restraining orders were filed against both of them. At the hearing, Celeste cried, acted confused, tried to paint herself as the victim. But her messages to Ronan, screenshots of fake threats, fabricated texts, told the truth. The judge granted the restraining orders. She didn't look at me as she left the courtroom. But the silence that followed wasn't peace. It was uncertainty. Months passed. Winter thawed. My windshield was replaced. My routine stabilized. Celeste and Ronan moved on, or at least disappeared from my world. But I didn't forget. Trauma rarely disappears. It just becomes quieter, waiting until something reminds you. I stayed on night shift, not because I needed to hide anymore, but because I understood something most people didn't. At 3 a.m., boundaries blur. People form attachments out of loneliness rather than compatibility. They mistake attention for love, intensity for connection. One night, a new hire, a nurse named Emily, sat beside me during break. "People say night shift changes you," she said. "Is that true?" I thought about Celeste, about the rain, about the smashed windshield, about how easy it had been to ignore early warning signs because they looked like affection. "Yeah," I said quietly. "It changes you." She tilted her head. "How?" "You learn that not everyone looking for comfort is harmless. Some people cling because they're afraid of losing control, not because they care." Emily swallowed, listening closely. "And if someone asks you to give up pieces of your independence to make them feel secure," I added, "it's not connection, it's control." She nodded slowly, taking the words seriously. When my shift ended, I stepped outside. Fog hovered over the empty roads. Pine trees lined the edge of the parking lot. The air was cold, still, clean. For the first time in a long time, the quiet didn't feel threatening. It felt earned. It felt like peace. Love is not urgency, control, panic, access, or fear. Love respects boundaries. Obsession violates them. Listen to your intuition early, because the person who seems like comfort at midnight may become the reason you fear the dark. I didn't end up at the Gray Line Motel because I wanted a fresh start or sought peace in the middle of nowhere. I landed there because life cornered me. After my mother died, the hospital bills buried me deeper than grief ever could. Then the printing company I worked for folded, and suddenly I was living out of my car, applying for jobs I never would have considered when life still made sense. A friend told me about a deserted roadside motel off Highway 57. The kind of place that doesn't ask many questions, he said. That was true. The owner, Halpern, was a thin man with nervous eyes who hired me 3 minutes after I walked in. Night shift, low pay, almost no guests. Perfect for someone trying to disappear. Before handing me the keys, he pulled me aside. "One thing you need to know," he said. "Don't open room 14. Don't touch the attic hatch above it, ever." I actually laughed. He didn't. He explained that decades earlier, a maintenance worker fell through a rotten board in the attic, shattered his legs, and died crawling around up there before anyone found him. Since then, guests reported hearing footsteps in 14 long after the attic had been bolted shut. Eventually, Halpern sealed the room entirely to stop complaints. That should have been my cue to turn around. But when you're broke, warnings feel like background noise. For weeks, my shifts were uneventful. A few truckers, a few travelers, plenty of silence. Winter arrived early that year, swallowing Montana under snow. The motel creaked constantly in the wind, but I learned to ignore it. Upsetting things always start small. February 9th was the kind of night you don't forget. A blizzard hammered the highway, turning the motel into an island of dim lights and howling wind. Only 3 rooms were occupied. I sat behind the front desk, sipping burnt coffee, trying to keep warm and awake. At 12:17 a.m., the front desk phone rang. It startled me. Those phones rarely rang at all. I lifted the receiver. "Grayline Motel, reception." A soft voice whispered, "We need new sheets in room 14. My first thought was simple disbelief. Room 14 wasn't occupied. It wasn't even available. "Sorry, did you say 14? "Yes," the voice whispered. "Bring them." Then the call disconnected. Logic told me it was a prank, but my job was to check complaints, even strange ones. So I grabbed a clean set of sheets and walked across the snowy walkway toward room 14. The door was cracked open. My stomach tightened, but I pushed it gently. The hinges groaned as if unused in years. The cold inside hit me fast, way colder than any other room. The bed looked recently slept in. The sheets twisted and damp, as if someone had been lying there moments earlier. Then I heard it. Footsteps, slow, measured, directly above me. The attic. I stared up at the sealed hatch. It was bolted shut, dusty, untouched. Yet something heavy moved behind it, not the skittering of an animal. These footsteps had weight, a pattern, a limp. Trying to convince myself I was imagining it, I changed the sheets fast. Then the phone rang. The phone in room 14, the one that had no power, no wiring, no service. I answered it, because fear makes you do stupid things. "Hello?" The same soft voice whispered, "Come upstairs. Bring the sheets." A long breath followed, wet, dragging. The attic hatch creaked above me. Dust rained down in thin streams. Something pressed against the wood from the other side, slow and deliberate, testing the bolts. That was enough. I backed out, heart pounding, then sprinted back to the office and shut myself inside. When the storm thinned momentarily, I looked toward the motel building. The attic window, dark for decades, now glowed faintly from within. A silhouette stood behind it, crooked and leaning forward, as if listening for something. For me, I didn't sleep. At sunrise, I called the sheriff. Sheriff Fallon was a calm, solid man who acted like nothing surprised him anymore. Still, when he heard my story, he raised an eyebrow, but he humored me. We entered room 14 together. The air inside remained unnaturally cold. Fallon looked around, frowning. "You sure no one else has keys?" "No one," I said. He checked the locked phone. "This hasn't worked in years." Then he aimed his flashlight at the attic hatch. The bolts were still in place, but the dust around them wasn't. Drag marks streaked across the wood. Not scratches, not claw marks, just wide, persistent smears, as if something underneath had been brushing or pulling against it. Fallon exhaled. "Let's open it." I wanted to object. My body wanted to run. But I stood still as he removed the bolts and lowered the hatch. The smell hit first. Old wood, damp insulation, something metallic underneath it all. The beam from Fallon's flashlight revealed what I'd feared. Footprints, human, bare, large, and behind them, long drag marks, two parallel streaks trailing across the dusty boards, like someone with useless legs had pulled themselves through the space. Fallon swallowed. These are fresh. That was the moment he told me the old story wasn't just folklore. The maintenance worker, Elliot Greaves, had died crawling. Witnesses who found him said he dragged his legs behind him for hours, leaving patterns just like these. Attempts to renovate the attic stopped after multiple workers claimed they heard someone crawling nearby. We searched the motel inch by inch, but nothing turned up. Whatever had moved through the attic was gone, or hiding. Sheriff Fallon closed the hatch. "This place has history," he said quietly. "History people didn't deal with." He advised me to quit. I didn't need to think long. I planned to work one final night so I could get my last paycheck. Looking back, that was my biggest mistake. The storm returned even worse than before, slamming the motel with wind that rattled the walls. The only guest checked in was asleep by 10. By 11:30, the whole building felt too quiet. At midnight, the front desk phone rang. I knew what it was. I still answered. "Reception?" I whispered. Static. A long, dragging breath. Then, "Bring the sheets." I hung up so fast the bell inside the phone rattled. Every light in the office flickered. The temperature dropped sharply. I could see my breath. Then, the motel's power went out. The sudden silence felt alive. The kind of silence that isn't absence, more like listening. Slow footsteps creaked across the walkway outside. Approaching. Stopping in front of the office door. I held my breath. A figure leaned against the glass, backlit by lightning, bent, twisted, its legs dragging behind it. It stayed there, unmoving. Then, with a faint tap on the window, it whispered, "Upstairs." Not loud, not angry, almost pleading. I stumbled backward, knocking over a chair. When I ran out the back door, the wind almost shoved me aside, but the walkway stood empty, completely untouched. No footprints, no disturbed snow. The footsteps I'd heard hadn't come from outside, they'd come from above, inside the structure, within the motel itself. That night, I packed what little I had and left before dawn. 2 weeks later, Gray Line Motel closed for good. Halpern boarded it up and vanished from town. I moved 3 towns away, then eventually to another state. I found steady work at a garage, kept my head down, and tried to rebuild the parts of my life that still worked. But the nights remained difficult. Sometimes I'd hear faint dragging sounds if the house settled wrong. Sometimes I'd wake to footsteps in the hall, only to remember I lived alone. But the worst reminder came exactly 1 year later. Another February storm, another unknown number on my phone. I answered without thinking. Static, a dragging breath, and a whisper. "Bring the sheets." My stomach clenched. I threw the phone across the room. Next morning, I switched numbers. Didn't matter. The next year, the call came again. From another unknown number, always during the storm, always the same message. I tried ignoring it, tried believing it was coincidence. But some things don't chase logic. Some things chase you. The calls continue every year, each time just one, each time the same whisper, the same breath that sounds like someone dragging themselves across a dusty floor. I haven't returned to Montana, haven't driven near Highway 57, but sometimes, in the dead of winter, when snow hits the roof just right, I hear faint creaking above me. Not footsteps, just the slow, desperate drag of something that remembers me and waits. When something feels wrong, trust yourself. Fear is sometimes a warning, not a weakness. Not every call should be answered, and not every door should be opened, especially the ones you're told to leave alone. People always say insomnia makes you dramatic, that you overreact because your nerves are thin and your brain never shuts off. Maybe they're right. Or maybe insomnia just strips away the noise most people hide behind. What I do know is this. When I accepted the night shift archivist job at Merriman Public Library in Portland, Maine, I wasn't looking for excitement. I just wanted quiet. a routine. After my parents died 8 years earlier, I quit writing, floated between odd jobs, and disappeared from my own life. My therapist finally suggested structure, real structure. So when Merriman posted a graveyard shift position, I took it. The building was older than most libraries. Heavy stone exterior, tall stained glass windows, creaking wooden floors. The air always smelled like dust and old paper, which I liked. During training, the head librarian, Mrs. Langford, gave me the rundown. Returns, catalog updates, motion logs, temperature checks. Straightforward. Except for one rule. When we passed the elevator panel, she rested her finger near an unlabeled button. "Basement level 3, I said. "What's down there?" She paused longer than normal before answering. "Storage. That floor isn't used anymore. And after 2 a.m., don't go down there. The humidity sensors malfunction. You'll get false alarms." Her tone was casual, but her hands trembled. I laughed it off. Old buildings always have stories. My first solo shift began March 4th, 2026. At 1:23 a.m., the motion alarm chimed softly. On screen, "Unauthorized access, basement L3. A cold feeling washed over me. Not fear, just unease. When I clicked the camera feed, the monitor flickered to static. Protocol said I had to investigate, so I swiped my badge and took the service elevator down. Halfway, the lift jolted violently, lights flickering like the building was struggling for power. When the doors opened, it wasn't on level 3. It stopped at level 2. The hallway was dim and silent. That's when I heard it. A book closing. Slow, heavy, downstairs. My heartbeat stumbled. I tried calling Mrs. Langford, but my phone immediately lost all signal. Part of me wanted to go back upstairs and pretend I never saw the alert, but I pushed open the stairwell door and went down. The moment I reached level 3, the air changed. It was colder, unnaturally cold. My breath fogged. The floor was covered with books. Not fallen, arranged. Circles, spirals, lines, patterns I didn't understand. At the center was a journal, thick brown leather, dated 1894. It wasn't in the catalog. Against better judgment, I opened it. The first page read, "Let him rest. He does not like to be read." Before I could blink, the light snapped off. Pitch black. Then, behind me, fabric dragging on stone. Slow, deliberate movement. I lifted my phone for light. "Hello?" My voice barely sounded like mine. For a second, there was only silence. Then, right beside my ear, "Close the book." Not loud, not angry, just a whisper, a warning. I dropped the journal and ran back toward the stairwell. The door didn't open at first. It felt like someone was holding it shut. I hit it with my shoulder until the latch gave, and I slammed it closed behind me. Something tapped the other side. 3 soft knocks. Not trying to break through, just reminding me it was there. Back upstairs. The library should have felt safe, familiar. Instead, every light flickered. Then motion alerts began firing across the monitor. History wing, reading hall, archives, children's room, fiction. Every section showed movement, but I was alone. Then the humming started, coming through the ventilation ducts, low and rhythmic, like someone trying to mimic a lullaby without understanding music. The lights began turning off aisle by aisle, closing in behind me. Not random, guiding me. The only pathway left lit led to the children's reading room. Bright murals now looked unsettling under the flickering emergency lights. "I'm not going down there," I whispered. But the darkness kept closing in until I had no choice. I sprinted down the hall and locked myself inside the children's room. At first, silence, then tapping. Soft fingertips tapping the glass wall. Not a fist, not force. Curiosity. Testing. More hands joined, tapping in uneven patterns. as if excited or impatient. I crouched behind a shelf, breath stuttering. Finally, in one desperate motion, I cracked open a small emergency window, climbed out, and fell into the rain. My knees hit pavement hard, but adrenaline kept me moving. I didn't stop running until I reached the diner across the street. The waitress dialed the police before I asked. When officers searched the library, I expected chaos. Instead, everything was perfectly neat. Shelves full, no books on the floor, no journal, no broken locks. The only abnormality: the humidity sensors on L3 were destroyed, melted as if exposed to extreme heat. Mrs. Langford arrived shortly after the officers. When she saw me, she didn't ask if I was okay. She just asked, "Did you open anything?" I didn't answer. She nodded like that was enough. By the next morning, she resigned. I quit the same day. For weeks, I told myself none of it was real. I blamed insomnia, stress, memory filling gaps it shouldn't. I took a job at a daytime bookstore and forced myself back into a routine. Early mornings, sunlight, normal life. But sometimes, walking home past dark windows or old brick buildings, I heard the humming again. Soft at first, then louder if I paused too long. I saw movement too. Reflections that shouldn't exist. A tall figure standing perfectly still, watching from somewhere just out of focus. If I blinked, it disappeared. If I kept staring, the humming grew louder. So I stopped looking. Sleep didn't return. Not really. I slept with the lights on, TV humming background noise, locks triple-checked. But fear doesn't fade just because you deny it. Sometimes denial feeds it. A month after I resigned, a package was waiting at my door. No postage, no return address, just my name. Inside, the leather journal. The one from basement level 3. The page I had read now looked different, like freshly rewritten ink sat over the old letters. "You should have closed it." My throat tightened. I flipped to the back. A new message filled the last page, written in dark, wet ink. "He remembers you." As I stared at the words, something shifted outside. Slow, dragging footsteps along the hallway carpet. Then the humming. Closer, right outside the door. 3 knocks, soft, patient. I backed away, gripping the journal even though I knew I should have dropped it. The humming stopped. Silence. But I knew that wasn't the end. Some things don't leave once you've seen them. Some doors don't close once you've opened them. Not all knowledge is meant to be uncovered. Some mysteries exist to be left alone, not because truth is dangerous, but because curiosity can wake things that should never be disturbed. Sometimes, the real threat isn't what waits in the dark. It's believing the dark will never look back.